What's up, guys? Well, today's the day. I've gone through a fair amount of time looking at my PC box. I've picked my team of 6 that I want to bring into this gauntlet against the Elite Four and the Champion. Let's go through our team. Up first, we have Eric confirmed a Manectric. He has Electric Surge, which makes electric moves more powerful. And we have Rising Voltage, which just doubles the strength in Electric Surge. So he's going to be my fast heavy hitter. I expect to use him a lot. Up next is GitHub the Breloom. Breloom has Technician, and so those Bullet Seeds and Force Bombs are going to be super powerful. And we have Spore to inflict status conditions whenever we need it. Next is Peters the Altaria. I changed its ability from Pixelate to Fluffy so it can tank physical hits better, and I'm using him as my main counter against Drayton and his Dragon types. Up next is Hugo Mendoza the Bayonet. With his Ghost and Normal typing, I plan to use him as a hard counter against Phoebe. At number 5 is my Wallace counter, and that's Mewtwo's to Cradilly. He has Storm Drain, which makes him immune to water type moves, and he has Salt Cure, which it's a move that does residual damage, but it does more damage over time against water type Pokemon. And at number 6 we have Captain Lawngnome the Slowbro, who is just physically bulky in general, and he has Regenerator, which means when I switch him out, he regains some HP, so I plan on using him for pivots and baiting in certain moves, or at least that's the idea. And with that, that's the full team. Everyone's set to level 55, so now let's go and take on the Elite Four. Up first, we have Sydney and his Dark types. He leads off with Mighty Anna, and I lead with Eric Confirm. Eric Confirm has the Electric Terrain up, so we just go right for Rising Voltage, and that just gets the clean one-shot. His next Pokemon is Honchkrow, and while I think Honchkrow is fitting for his team, it's weird that he brings it out next, but no matter, we get the knockout. And then he brings out Crawdaunt. Again, he has a Cacturn in the back, as you'll see here, because Rising Voltage gets the knockout, and here comes Cacturn. Now right here, I decide to go into Peters, and we get Leech Seeded. But no matter, Peters is a Fairy type in this game, so I just go straight for the Moonblast. And Peters just barely misses out on the one-shot. That's gotta be 1 HP. I didn't want to keep Peters in while dealing with Leech Seed, so I decided to make the switch into GitHub, who would resist anything that Cacturn does, and we get the kill with a Force Palm. I'm feeling really good at this point, because all Sydney has left is his Absol, so GitHub outspeeds and uses a Force Palm. Is what I would say, but unfortunately, Absol outsped, and I forgot it had Aerial Ace, and it one-shotted GitHub. This is 100% my fault. I am so used to fighting Sydney as a complete pushover, and even watching Nuzlocke challenges how Sydney is just a pushover, and that's because when you play base Emerald, his Absol's at level 49, but this is a hard mode on a modified version of Emerald, and it's at level 53. So, looking back on it now, yes, it outspeeds and knocks out GitHub in one hit, and unfortunately I have to live with that mistake and continue through the gauntlet with one less Pokemon. Not gonna lie, this sucks. Now Phoebe is the next Elite Four to fight, and she uses Ghost types. She leads off with a Dusclops, and I lead with Mendoza the Bayonet. Mendoza is actually going to do really solid here. He gets to knock out on both Dusclops and her ace Dusknoir with a Choice Band boosted Phantom Force. Afterwards, Phoebe brings in her third Pokemon, which is her own Bayonet. At this point, I decide to switch into Peters the Altaria, who actually tanks a resisted Thunderbolt. Unfortunately, even though I spend one turn to get a boost from Torch Song, it still takes 2 more turns to get the knockout on Bayonet, which is unfortunate because I take some unnecessary extra damage. Phoebe then brings out her Miss Magius, and Utu's to Cradilly turns out to be a really good counter against this Pokemon. Utus is very specially bulky, so we're able to take Moonblast and Shadow Balls so that we can use Salt Cure to rank up the residual damage, and we get the knockout with a Flower Trick. Phoebe's last Pokemon is her Frostlass, and I decide to switch into Lawn Gnome to tank a resisted Ice Beam to try to bait a Shadow Ball so I can get a clean switch on Mendoza, but this turns out to not work as I just get burned by Will-O-Wisp, but I have to keep him in anyway. I really don't have much of a good switch back into anything else. So even though I was burned, a Choice Banded Rage Fist after getting hit once was enough to get the one shot on Frostlass. And that's Phoebe Deathless. And you know what? After losing GitHub just a moment ago, this is a huge confidence booster for the rest of the Elite Four. Number 3 is Glacia, and her Ice-type team is much better than the base Emerald games. She leads with Dugong, and I lead with Eric. Eric is just going to get the one-shot with an Electric Terrain boosted Rising Voltage. She brings out her next Pokemon, which is Glaceon, and me just probably overthinking it, I didn't think that we would get the one-shot, and I really just don't want Eric to take like many ice moves. I make the hard switch into Captain Lawn Gnome. Also, Eric is choice locked, he has the choice specs on, so I can't use Overheat at the moment. But Glaceon just opts to go for a Hail. On this turn I try to go on the offensive, but Glaceon reveals it has Attract. And Captain Lawn Gnome, she's a little distracted by something. I'll be honest, I'm not 100% sure what she's distracted by, but you gotta get your head in the game, buddy. Over the next 4 turns, I try to get any damage on this Glaceon, but it doesn't work. The Glaceon does use Chilling Water, which really doesn't do a lot of damage and won't really do much to me. All I'm able to do is get a Slack Off, so at least I get to heal some HP. Seeing that the Hail has ended, I make the chance to switch into Eric Confirm again, and sure enough, Glaceon just spends another turn setting up the Hail. This allows me on the following turn to knock out Glaceon with a Choice Specs boosted Overheat. Up next is Glalie, and I decide to take a chance and stay in to get another Overheat off, even though I'm at -2 special attack. It does a little over half, but I don't get the KO. Glalie also shoots an Ice Beam at me, and fortunately, I don't think a crit would have killed, but with the Hail Chip, it would have been close. So I make the switch into Captain Lawn Gnome, who tanks an Ice Beam pretty well. Unfortunately, I get frozen, and in Nuzlocke, getting frozen is probably the worst status condition that you can get. I decide to stay in for a turn, and a Crunch would have killed on a critical hit. This is not good. Unfortunately, I do have a Citrus Berry, and but I don't unfreeze. It's like, I forget what the chance is. It's like 30 or 20% every turn. It can go on forever. And Glalie's getting Moody Boost, so it's getting stat buffs and stat drops. It's getting really random here, and that's dangerous. Predicting another Crunch, I make the hard switch into Peters the Altaria because it's Fairy type, and Fairy resists Dark type moves, so we tank it pretty well. Now, since Glalie got the speed drop last turn, I decide to stay in and try to get the KO with Moonblast, but Glalie still outspeeds and hits really hard with Ice Beam. We do get the heal with the Citrus Berry, so I might be able to live next turn if it doesn't crit. Because the thing is, Moonblast here doesn't even get the knockout, which is crazy. I really don't see anyone I can comfortably switch in, so I decide to stay in, and we speed tie, because this turn Peters outsped and gets the knockout with Moonblast. So that's a huge relief. Glacia brings out her Walrein next turn, and I decide to make the switch into Lawn Gnome on a resisted Ice Beam. Knowing that Walrein can only hit for neutral with Body Slam, I decide to stay in to try to unfreeze and get a Slack Off, but as you're going to see, it's not going to happen. The freeze condition really sucks. Next turn, I decide to switch into Mendoza, who I actually make the correct call, and we switch in on a Body Slam, which we're immune to. Looking back on this, I really don't know why I switched back into Lawn Gnome. I guess I didn't want to risk Mendoza getting killed here. But I switch into Lawn Gnome on a resisted Ice Beam, and then I spend another turn to try to unfreeze, and of course it doesn't work. I then switch back into Mendoza, hoping to switch in on another Body Slam, but I'm not so lucky, and Mendoza takes a Surf that does well over half of his health. It's at this point that I decide to make an unfortunate call. So I go into Lawn Gnome again, we tank a resisted Ice Beam, and instead of spending another turn to try to get a Slack off, which probably won't work, I make the unfortunate call to switch back into Mendoza, who's going to get knocked out by an Ice Beam. It sucks, but honestly, Mendoza was really here to be a counter to Phoebe, and he did his job well, so rest in peace, buddy. This allows me to safely switch into Eric Confirm, which was my plan at this point. Eric Confirm is able to outspeed on the Walrein to kill with a Rising Voltage under the electric terrain, and Glacia's last Pokemon is a Cloyster. It doesn't have a Sash or anything, and Cloyster's special defense is notoriously awful, so we just get the one-shot again. So, it sucks I had to sacrifice Mendoza, but Eric was able to come in and sweep the last two Pokemon, and we have 4 Pokemon left against 2 more trainers in this gauntlet. So Drake is the final Elite Four member, and his Dragon types won't be easy. He leads with Kingdra, and I start off with Peters. Peters has a Choice Scarf, and we're just clicking Moonblast, and honestly, I plan to keep doing this until Peters gets knocked out. It's a very risky strategy, but I want to get as many kills with Peters as I can, so that I can avoid using the rest of my Pokemon. I'm trying to save them for Wallace. It takes 2 turns, but Peters gets the knockout on Kingdra, and the special attack drop on Moonblast really helped us with that Ice Beam. Drake brings out Flygon next, and it's going to be another 2-hit KO with Moonblast. And fortunately, we do not get crit by Earthquake because Peters is just living by a sliver. Then Drake brings out his ace, which is Salamence. So Moonblast does a decent chunk of damage, and Salamence does heal a little bit with a Citrus Berry. Salamence gets a knockout with Rock Slide, and my heart drops as I see the Moxie trigger happen. So every time Salamence gets a kill, he gets +1 to his attack. And if I don't stop Salamence right here, I could wipe. Captain Lawn Gnome comes in because he's the best when it comes to physical bulk, and I have to pray we don't get crit by this crunch here. Never punished. Captain Lawn Gnome heals with a Citrus Berry, and then kills Salamence with an Ice Beam. That was scary. Drayton brings out Altaria next, and I switch into Utus, who is going to start chipping away at Altaria's health using Salt Cure. Altaria is going to spend the next 2 turns using Dragon Dance, and I'm just going to be chipping away at its health while using Salt Cure and also Flower Trick. At +4 attack and speed, Altaria tries to hit me with an Aerial Ace, but I protect, and we kill it with the Salt Cure. Drayton then brings his last Pokemon, which is Steelix. And I forgot that I used Protect last turn because for some reason I do it again. I get it, but it was useless because all Steelix does is use Iron Defense. So on my next turn, I go for a Salt Cure while it just goes for Iron Defense. And because it's a Steel type, this Salt Cure will deal a lot of damage between turns. On this turn, I decide to switch into Captain Lawn Gnome. I'm predicting like a Body Press or something from Steelix, but no, it just keeps going for Iron Defense. That's okay, because Captain Lawn Gnome can get the knockout here, but Steelix actually outspeeds and hits a Crunch, and fortunately we don't get crit, because that probably would have killed. Again, not punished. Captain Lawn Gnome goes for the Surf, and we knock out Steelix. And that's straight and done. I have 3 Pokemon left, and all that's left is one more fight, and that's the champion. I am fortunate that Eric, Utus, and Captain Lawnome are my last 3 surviving members, because when I was building this team, I kind of had them at the core because I knew all 3 of them could take on Wallace by themselves. So let's test this out. Let's see if I was right about this core. I go up to confront Wallace and our final battle begins. Wallace is going to lead with his Wailord and I lead with Eric Confirm. With the electric terrain up, Rising Voltage does plenty of damage to completely knock out Wailord. This leads for Wallace to bring out his next Pokemon, which is Whiscash. Whiscash is immune to electric moves, so I have to switch into Utus. Earthquake does actually a lot of damage, but my held Citrus Berry heals me back to over half health, and this turns out to really save me here. Whiscash does not see the kill anymore, and they decide to go for an Amnesia. I go for a Giga Drain, which doesn't do a lot because of the Amnesia, but I at least regain back some HP. On the next turn, Whiscash still just wants to use Amnesia, and I get to KO with a Flower Trick. With 4 Pokemon left, Wallace brings out his ace Milotic, and I make the switch into Captain Lawnome on a resisted Ice Beam. I wanted to see how much Psychic could do, but Milotic goes for a Toxic. I kind of forgot it had that, which now means Lawnome is put on a timer if I keep him in for too long. After spending a turn to try to heal, I decide to switch into Utus to reset the Toxic timer, but also try to get Assault Cure onto Milotic. Milotic's Ice Beam does just enough damage to where another will get the kill, but we don't get frozen, and I am able to hit with Assault Cure. I spend next turn protecting because I was predicting an Ice Beam, but Wallace actually goes for a Recover. I make the switch into Captain Lawnome, but I'm trying to get Utus back in so it can attack while Milotic wants to recover. So after spending another turn of doing Slack Off while Milotic goes for Recover, I decide to try to execute that plan and I switch into Utus. Fortunately, I am able to switch Utus in on a predicted Surf, and Milotic is now at half health because of the Salt Cure, so it needs to recover. Milotic heals its HP, and I hit it with a +1 Giga Drain. That plus a Salt Cure at the end of the turn means it's going to die next turn, unless it's able to keep recovering. Wallace actually decides to not recover on its next turn, and just decides to hit me with a Toxic. It probably saw it was going to die. And sure enough, I kill it with a Giga Drain. Wallace brings out his Gyarados, which can be scary because it does have Dragon Dance, so I decide to put it on a timer and I go for Salt Cure. I switch into Captain Lawnome, and because of its physical bulk, Gyarados just wants to constantly use Dragon Dance, which means after 2 turns, we just kill it with a Psychic because of the Salt Cure. Wallace only has 2 Pokemon left, and I still have all 3 of my guys. He brings in Ludicolo, and I switch right back into Utus, and I was expecting like a Giga Drain or a Double Team, but Ludicolo actually goes for a Leech Seed, which Utus is immune to, so that was a good call on my end. Ludicolo goes for a Giga Drain, which does decent damage, but I hit it with the Salt Cure, so I can start dealing damage to it over time. Unfortunately, this is where Utus is going to make their last stand. I need to safe switch into Eric, and I can't risk a Giga Drain or even like a Surf doing too much damage. So these last 2 turns, he protects so that Ludicolo can't heal with Giga Drain, and then the poison drops it to 0. This allows Eric to finally come in, and he absolutely nukes Ludicolo with a Rising Voltage. This leaves Wallace with his last Pokemon, and that's his Tentacruel, and this is just perfect. I go and click Rising Voltage, Eric Confirm outspeeds, and he knocks out Tentacruel in 1 hit. This wins us the champion fight, and the entire run. This is it, I did it. The Hardcore Wishlocke challenge is done. This has by far been my favorite Nuzlocke challenge that I've done on this channel. To give a little context, after I beat my Nuzlocke challenge of Yellow Legacy, I tried to step it up by doing the difficulty ROM hack Blaze Black 2 Redux, and it was, as I said, it was really challenging, and I found it difficult to see. I was getting better and better at it, but I was barely even getting to the 4th gym before I'd wipe, and I didn't want to do like a video just going that short into the game, and I don't know, it kind of put me in a slump, like I really didn't want to do anything else, so I took a break from doing Nuzlocke challenges. And that's when I saw Seaglass getting popularity, and I saw the wishing well to randomize encounters, and I guess it kind of reignited the spark to do more Nuzlocke challenges again, and I'm really happy I did it. I really like randomizing my Pokemon and my encounters and going through Pokemon games just to, like, you know, change it up every time. I really enjoy doing like Wonderlocks when I was playing casually on my DS, so I may try to focus more on some of that in the future. I don't know. I will say that I am in the middle of another run. It may take a few weeks before I post anything about it because this last episode has taken a lot of my time, and I haven't been able to get really deep into the run yet. This has been so much fun, and I really like the interactions and the comments I've gotten from people in this series, so thank you for people who've watched it, who've interacted in the comments and liked my videos. It really means a lot, and I hope people still stay around to see what other challenges I do. This has been the Emerald Seaglass Wishlocke Challenge, and I'll see you guys later.